Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to show you the editing breakdown of the Nerds commercial video I created a few weeks ago. So if you haven't seen that video, you can check it out now. So I have a complete behind the scenes of how I shot this video directly from my living room. If you haven't checked that out, I'll link that video up here. Today is part one of my editing breakdown of this video. I'll be showing you how I edited the first two shots. Before we get started, I want to say how thankful I am to all of you. We have recently reached 500 subscribers. To many, it might seem like a small number, but to me, it's a very massive milestone. YouTube recently sent me an email to congratulate me on this milestone, and they said that with 500 people, I can fill up a jumbo plane, which is insane. It's like speaking to 500 of you at a large auditorium or a large hall. So when you put that into context, 500 people is a lot of people. So thank you so much for being here. It does mean a lot to me. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. I create weekly content on photography, filmmaking, editing tutorials, and gear review. If you'd like to see some of the behind the scenes and all the process that goes behind creating things, you can check out my Instagram as well. So let's jump into the editing station. I at first cut all the clips and then I laid them out in Premiere Pro, which what I usually like to use to compile all of my edits and where I add my sound design and my music. I use After Effects for more complex effects or for things that I can't do in Premiere Pro. So this was the first scene. As you can see, we have the little box moving around, just shaking a little bit, and all of a sudden it kind of jumps in the air. So the idea behind this shot is that I wanted the nerds to start to become alive and shake that box to cause chaos. So I have this clip with the arts and crafts wire that I had attached to the back of the box. So what I did from here was I replaced it with an After Effects composition to send it into After Effects. And now in After Effects, to eliminate that wire, there are a few things that you could do. The first one is you can mask the box and keyframe it, so you can hide the wires. But for that, you also need a clean shot of just the background. A thing that is critical if you do it this way is that the lighting has to be the same for both shots. But in this case, I didn't shoot a background for this particular shot because I knew that I wanted to remove the wire with an effect in After Effects. So let's name this, we'll name it Nerds Scene 1 Tutorial, because this is for the tutorial. So the effect here that I use is Simple CC Wire Removal. So you can look it up on the effects panel. CC Simple Wire Removal effect. I drop it into the footage, to the composition. I'll move point A. Use a little crosshair, click on that crosshair so I can direct where I want the first point to be, which is up there. And the second crosshair, point B, I click on this crosshair and I directed it right here. So this is the beginning of the clip. This is the exact length that I want to work with, which is why I usually like to trim my clips first in Premiere Pro before I send the clips over to the After Effects composition. So I'll toggle the effects rack down here in the clip itself. And I'll select CC Simple Wire Removal. And I like to use this better and zoom in a little bit more so that I can adjust the keyframes and see the timeline a little bit easier. So at this first point, I'll enable keyframes by clicking on the stopwatch. And you can adjust the effects either here in the effects control panel or down here. I'll leave this as this place. And under thickness, this is where you adjust the thickness of the effect, and that will depend on the thickness of your actual wire. And this is where the magic happens. So you can see if I adjust it to about 24, I adjust the slope to about 70 or 69 just to see what fits and what works. The mirror blend, you can play around with the settings, but I think 25, the default, looks about right. And there you just adjust it a little bit and voila. the wire is removed. So what this effect does is, I believe it sort of does like a mirror blend, and it blends whatever thin wire that you had with the background. And this is an effect that is used a lot in action movies and films when actors are tied up to ropes and wires and everything, and they're doing these crazy stunts. This is something that they could use to remove those ropes and frames. And because it's video and there's motion blur when all these action sequences are happening, this effect is a lot more forgiving, even though you sometimes might be able to see a glimpse of that rope, but because it's an action sequence and things are moving, you see motion blur anyway. So it blurs well with the motion and disappearance of that rope. So now what I do from here is go frame by frame to make sure that the wire doesn't show up. And you go to a point in time where the wire actually starts to show up. An easy way to navigate your keyframes on the timeline in After Effects is to click page up or page down on your keyboard, which is a faster way of doing it. So at this point, at frame 19, you can see that the wire starts to reappear. So at this point, since we already have the keyframes enabled, we'll move around point A and point B a little bit just to hide that again. Bam, we've hidden it there, and continue to move forward into the next frame. And you keep hiding all the wires. You keep adjusting that according to the movement of the box. So for this particular keyframe right here, you can see that I tried to move both points, and no matter where I moved them, there was still a little bit of a hint of that wire showing. So what I did is I went one keyframe before and I enabled the stopwatch for thickness for that effect. And then I moved to one keyframe after that, and I clicked on keyframe and I set that keyframe to make sure that for everything before and after to be the same thickness. And I go back to the frame where I'm having the trouble and I go and adjust the thickness. After you're done with that first wire, what you have to do is the exact same thing, but with the second wire. This is another tedious process of keyframing each individual point for your second wire. For that, you'll add another CC simple wire removal effect into your footage. And now we go ahead and do the exact same thing with the first one and individually keyframe this effect. As soon as I click save in After Effects, when I go back to Premiere Pro, the After Effects composition is right here in Premiere Pro. And you can tell because it's changed the color of your footage from the blue to the pink. So for this shot, I recorded the blue background by itself. I knew I wanted to mask the different nerds being thrown into the air. And I shot the box flying into the air at 120 frames per second. And then I interpret the footage to 23.98 or 23.976, which is pretty much 24 frames per second. And that slows down the footage to about 20%. And then I had the different iterations of me throwing the nerds up in the air. And I had some here that I kept because I like that the way that the nerds kind of bounced off right here near the end. And I felt like that was a really cool organic bounce. And this one as well, which all the colorful nerds. So I had selected the clip right here. And again, I'll send it to After Effects. So what I did for this beginning shot was I added CC simple wire removal again, and I removed, let me turn these nerds off first. You can also select all of the different layers in After Effects and press U on your keyboard to collapse them all. And you can click this little circle if you want just to highlight one clip. So what I did here was I completely removed the wire, but I also wanted to remove the box itself because I wanted to use the empty background. Because I'm adding different nerds in it, it was just easier just to completely remove that box so that it will be easier to grade and color correct the box to match the nerds a little more. Another trick that you can do is once you have a layer selected, you press U and that'll bring down all the different the effects that you are working on or that you have enabled. So I have wire removal that I had done, simple CCC wire removal, and a mask path that I had created using Mocha for AE. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So here I have the wires removed, but I also want to remove the box completely from the background. So what I used for this was AE or Mocha for After Effects. So once I add this effect, I go into the effects control panel, I click on Mocha, and this will bring up this. I can register later. I've never registered, I should. Start, and you have a new little window that looks like this. And this is, I personally like to mask stuff more using Mocha. I don't know, I just like it a little bit more. So you go up top into the tools and you'll select the Create X Spline Layer tool, which is just the pen tool in After Effects. And you'll draw roughly around the box. We can come again later to fix it and adjust the edges. And we'll click back and we close it. So now you can see that on the timeline underneath, you can see that there is a green keyframe that has been created, and that's because we created a mask here. You can drag the blue handles to straighten the corners. If you wanted something round, you could have that depending on what you have. You can also click on the individual points right here to further adjust your mask. So I'm pretty happy with this. So what we can do now is track this box, and you do that by going to the left where it says track, and you can track forward just to see what that looks like. You can see that Mocha does a really pretty decent job at tracking this box. So now we can just manually go to each frame and see where we can adjust this a little bit more. And once you've added an adjustment at a certain point in the timeline, you can track again from that point forward so that Mocha understands your new tracking. Now you can go back to the keyframe where you first created that mask, and now we can track backwards from there. After you've done this, you'll go to the left corner at the top and you'll click on Save. Once you have that saved, you can close this Mocha window, and back in your effects control panel, you click on Matte, and what you will do is create an AE mask. And as soon as you do that, a mask is created, a tracked mask is created. It's that easy and that simple. And once you go down into your layers panel, you click on mask, you see layer 1. This is the mask that has been created and all the keyframes that were created inside in Mocha. So now that we have the wire removed and we have the box masked out from the background, we can go back here and we will enable our blue background. So what I did here was all of these nerds clips that I had selected, I brought them all into After Effects. I replaced them with an After Effects composition. Back in After Effects, they were all in here into the one composition here. So for this first clip, which is this layer right here, so I duplicated one of the nerds and now it's named nerds 10 just to illustrate what I did here. So let's play this clip. We have the nerds right there going up in the air. So I know that I want to use this clip right here up until the point there. I added a color key and I dropped that, and under key color, I clicked on the eyedropper tool and selected blue in the background. Color tolerance, I brought it up all the way to a certain point, and I know edge thin too much, and feather maybe about 0.7, see what that looks like. Okay, still a little bit not to what I like, so let me do it again. I'll click closer to where the nerds are. You can see that this does not completely remove all the blue, and that is because there's different shades of blue in the background. So what I do here is start masking these nerds. And the mask here doesn't have to be super perfect. All you have to do is just create a circle or some shape that will just surround the group of nerds and follow them around. Now you can toggle that mask down here on the layer panel, and you can enable the mask path so that you're able to keyframe that mask and follow the nerds. And another reason why you want to create a mask around just a group of nerds too, is because the color key does not remove my hand and the bowl because they're not blue. So with this mask, you're able to isolate the alter key or the color key to anything only inside that mask. So I did that with a bunch of different nerds, and after what I did was adjust the scale and the position of these nerds. You can repeat this process with all the different clips of the different nerds that we got. When you add the box, you'll be able to better adjust the size, the scale of the group of nerds to make it look more realistic. Maybe the rotation, rotate them a little bit and scatter them a little bit. So now this is what it looks like. And now when we bring the blue background back, so once you have everything together, another thing that you do is match the color of the nerds with the box to sell the effect a lot more. Because right now you can see that, for example, these nerds right here, they did not match the box in terms of brightness and color. So I'll bring the limited color effect and I'll drop them in the nerds here. Bring up the exposure by a little bit, some of the contrast and saturation to make the colors pop more so that they match the box more. And if I toggle the effect of the color on and off, you can see the difference. Just a minor tweak and it sells the effect a lot more. Stay tuned for next week, where I'll be showing you part 2 of this editing breakdown, where I particularly focus on how I created that boomerang effect in Premiere Pro and how I edited that stop motion animation sequence and how I edited that final frame where the Nerds logo comes out of the box. So I hope you learned something new from this video, and if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed and you're watching, thank you again so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see more editing tutorials from me. So that is all for today, guys, and stay safe until next time.